All right, we have two things left to do on the Pong game for coding. The first is going to be the reset button. So I'm going to click over here on reset and say when reset clicked. So if you think about everything that a reset button should fix when you're starting a game, we have to do a couple things like we have to tell the puck to go back to its starting location. So I'm going to click on puck. I'm going to call puck move to. And then its X location is going to be that top of the screen halfway across the canvas. So we're going to grab math block and we're going to choose divide. It's going to be our canvas width. Which is light green, kind of near the bottom. And we just want to cut the canvas in half. So our math block is going to go there with the number 2. Okay, so our X location is halfway across the canvas. Our Y location, we need to look at what it is on here. So my puck right now has a Y of 24, and it's up at the top of my screen. Based on where your puck is on your tablet when you're testing, that's this number. So yours might be different from mine based on what you decided to use for your sprite. Mine's a 24. Okay, the next thing I need to reset is my timer. So I need to tell it to set my timer back to my original 10 seconds or 30 seconds, whatever it was that we set it at to begin with. I need to set my score back to 0 because the game is starting over. And remember, these are only internal timers and internal scores. If we look back at what we wrote before, we have these labels. I'm going to copy and paste that code. And I need to tell it to be my external one as well. So I copied it twice just because then I can do timer to timer, timer, and the other one can say score. So now my reset button will move my puck, reset my timer, reset my score, and make my displays match that as well. Next thing we're going to do is our clock code to make our timer actually count down. So over here in my blocks, I'm going to click on clock, and I'm going to say when clock, one timer. Every time my clock timer fires, I need to set my timer just like with the score, except we're going to subtract. So we're going to set the timer to get the current timer. Oops, try that again. And we're going to subtract 1 because we need our timer to go down by 1 second every time it fires. Okay, I need to internal here, so now I need my external. So this will make it actually show that it's counting down. And then I need to tell my game what to do if my timer equals 0. I don't want my timer to go negative. So I need to say something like if my timer equals 0, and that's going to be a control logic. So if, grab another math blocks with equal, and I'm going to say that if my timer equals 0. I don't want my timer to work anymore once it gets to 0. I don't want my puck to move if my timer gets to 0, because if the timer's at 0, the game's over. I should have won. So I'm going to set my puck speed to 0 because I don't want it to move anymore. And then I had you guys download some supporting files They were listed on Canvas. If you haven't done that yet, the supporting files were here. They would have taken you to Google Drive. These are all the supporting files you need. Download mine real quick. I got my collection. All right. So I've got my supporting files. I'm going to go into App Inventor. I'm going to upload them here one at a time because App Inventor doesn't like to give you more than one. So I've got my win screen. This is going to be a win sound file, a lose sound file, a game over screen because I've lost, and then a collision sound file, which is the noise it makes when they crash together. All right, so I've got my files uploaded. When my timer equals 0, my puck stops. I want to win the game. So I'm going to go to my Canvas 1, and I'm going to set my Canvas 1 background image to, here it is, and that's going to be my UN PNG. PNG is an image file. WAV is a sound file. You cannot set a background image to a sound file. All right, so I'm going to set it to my image. And then I also want it to play a noise. So I'm going to go back to my designer, go to my media, and I'm going to add a sound here. I've got my sound. And then under blocks, I'm going to say that I want to set my sound 1 source to, and I'm going to make that be the win.wave. So now my puck stops, my background switches, I win the game. I also need my timer to stop working when it hits 0, otherwise it's going to go negative. So I'm going to do set clock 1, timer enabled to false, just like we did in the last video. Now, since I've told it to be false if it equals 0, it also needs to understand what to happen if it's not false. We're going to put an else, just like we did before. And we're going to say that if it's not false, then of course it's true. This should make your clock work. This timer code is going to be useful for any game that you ever need to put a timer on. The only thing that would be different is your Canvas background image and your sound files. We did download a couple more files that you can add to this game. The first one I want to add in is my collision. So I'm looking for my code that I wrote where it talks about them colliding. So when puck collides with, I want that when puck collides with to touch. I want that sound file to be the collision sound. So I'm going to go to sound 1, and I'm going to say set sound 1 source to collision.wave. So now when my puck touches my stick, it should make a noise that sounds like they're crashing together. The last noise I have is if my puck reaches the edge because I've lost the game. That is going to be set sound 1 source to lose, and it's going to go aw. I also want my background of my canvas to change to the you lose screen, just like we did for the win screen. This one is called gameover.png. And since I've changed my backgrounds here, that means on my reset, I also need to change my Canvas 1 background. back to my original hockey puck or hockey screen, right? So all this code should make your game work. You've got your timer, reset your start. Part of the rubric for this one says you have to make your game harder in some way. Your choice how you want to do that. Most of you will choose to do it either by making it go faster when your score reaches a certain point or when your timer reaches a certain point.